How you doing, guys? Michael here, Jamaican Car Guy, and welcome to another episode of the Bucket Seat. Today, our guest is none other than Doug or Hollywood. His full name is Douglas. Douglas, but Doug for short. Everybody know him as one of the most iconic and greatest racers of Jamaica, of the Caribbean, and some would even go as far as one of the most iconic in the world. He's a father, a friend, a great businessman, and a mentor for a lot of people.
Thank
He
you.
has made a lot of great marks in the automotive industry, not just as a racer, but also as a pioneer for taking it to the next step as it relates to setting trends. So today we are going to go through what it's been like for him in that, what it was like back then, and what it's like now. So, Sir Doug, thank you for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you.
One of the great questions I would love to ask you is, or I like to ask is, who is Doug Gore? A lot of people would describe you, but how would you describe yourself?
So I would tell a lot of people, and it's actually quite common to my friends to understand that there are two sides of me. There's a Doug Gore and there's the Hollywood. To be honest with you, they're very fast and different. Almost a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde sort of situation.
Yes.
And it's funny how life took on Hollywood as racing went on. And I do become Hollywood when I'm out at the racetrack, and it's done on purpose. It is to garner the interest, and of course with the sponsors, with the fans, and everybody else around watching motorsports.
Okay.
So that persona came and it stuck with me. And I was given that nickname very, very long time ago by a really nice guy on CVM TV. And it stuck, but it was a good stick, to be honest with you. And it has worked out well in me.
All right, so that pretty much covered one of the questions I was going to ask you is how you got the name Hollywood.
Yes.
Before racing, because I know there's a life before racing. What was it like for you growing up?
So I always wanted to race, and from when I was young, watching my father, my uncles race, being around motorsports quite a lot. And then my father was one of the very different people where he excelled in whatever he did, whether it was playing badminton for his school, whether it was playing golf for Jamaica, and racing cars and doing boat racing. And so I was always around doing stuff with him. And it was funny that every time the family got together, they would always talk about the motor racing side. So, you're there and all of these things were like, oh, could I ever be? But at the time growing up, my father was saying, listen, motor racing is so expensive. It was one of the most expensive sports that I was in.
Okay.
So I can't say that I want to get you into it because this is going to break you. And it almost broke me. So I don't want that to happen to you. So I said, boy, that the drive to be part of motorsports in general was just so huge. And then going to Cornwall College and seeing the likes of the Kings, and you're there watching them. So you're getting to be a part of motorsports in that respect. And then I had a friend of mine that came along one day and said, Doug, I see you driving around like a total madman on the road, which is very true. I mean, thinking back, I'm kind of glad that I'm here today because I really used to drive like a mad person.
Okay.
And they saw that and they said, Doug, you need somewhere to vent your frustrations, really. And the best place was a racetrack. And believe it or not, the racing on a racetrack was actually safer for me than driving on a road. You didn't have a cow or a goat or a truck parked around the corner. You didn't have where another human to crash into another car, because usually you're going the same direction
as everybody else.
as everybody else. So yes, of course, motorsports has had my thrills and spills over time. There's no doubt about that. I've been to a hospital a couple of times. Well, so more so than I would care to even think about. But yeah, I mean, I'm still here. No broken bones. I mean, I fractured a bone in my back, but all things considered, I got away pretty good.
Okay.
And still racing today, right? So the love is still there.
Okay.
So yeah, it's one of those things that I needed to get into motorsports. I think that's the main key thing. I needed to get into it.
Is that
whatever it took, you know?
It's a good way to, as you say, vent off a lot of the pent up
Yes.
Issues or angers we face on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
One of the people do say a lot of times that when you get too old, you have to step aside or step out a particular light. So that would lead me to a question. Why do you still race?
I always said to myself that the day that I thought that I was what they call also ran, that I would now give up the sport. If I ever go into my race car and I feel that I can't have a chance to win, I would stop.
Okay.
And throughout my racing career, I always had to drive. I was just jokingly talking to David Somerville and Chris Issa just yesterday. And Chris was asking who was a better driver between David and myself. And he was laughing out loud and says, I know you're in a dog with your Hollywood persona. You're going to say you're the best. But really and truly, I would never classify myself as the best. But what I do know for sure and for a fact is that I never ever entered any race whatsoever without the thought of winning. There was never going for second place, ever.
Okay.
And that's the way that I drove. And that's also one of the reasons why the nickname stuck, right? Because you're always balls to the wall and you're just driving maximum as fast as you can go. And it's something that I talked to Tommy about in his racing career. That even when he started with go-karting, I said to him that if Daddy sees that you're just driving around the track for the sake of driving around the track, then I'm going to call it quits. And he was like, why, Daddy? I mean, isn't this fun? And I said, well, you might take it different than me. The fun part to me is winning. And I would be stressed to the hilt over the weekend, and my family would look at me and like, boy, I mean, I still can't understand why you're doing this. The late nights, the early mornings, the pack up, the get to the race, the come home. I mean, after a race meet, I'm usually getting home at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just totally done because, you're packing up all this stuff after a long day of racing. So again, as what you said, is that the behind the scenes is huge, right?
Yeah, it is.
And I'm sure you've been part of just watching some of what's going on and seeing it for yourself.
I've observed a lot of it. A lot of people do come to the races on race day, and they see the race go down.
That's right.
But they don't see really and truly what it takes to prepare
the background,
the car,
so true.
Prepare yourself, prepare your team, prepare the track. Everything is a job in itself, and it's something that has to be constant. That's one of the reasons why it's not just financially expensive, it's mentally expensive as well.
Yes. I fully agree with that.
Before we dive too far into racing, how has it impacted your family life?
I actually think that it has done wonders for me and my family. It brings us together. Every time we go to a race meet, everybody's there, everybody's supportive, doesn't care what. We're all a big family, we're all a big team. Even my teammates that are around me looking after the car, it's like a big family. A lot of them come and stay at my own house, and we're eating dinner at nights, and we're talking about we have the domino sessions, of course.
I've seen some of the domino highlights. Okay.
So yeah, it has been really, really good as far as a family point of view, and just the kids growing up and being around this, it has also been phenomenal.
Okay.
We're all there, even supporting Tommy right now, and everybody's going out as a family and rooting him on for his endeavors in Germany.
I've seen how everybody has rallied together,
Yeah.
and that's another thing that people don't notice, or it just kind of flies over a person's head, and it's how well a family may rally behind one person or one member to ensure that the dream or a goal that they're working towards is brought to light and pushed beyond.
And one of the things that I'll tell you, and it was talked about just this week, after that last race at Red Bull Ring with Tommy, and Tommy got on the phone and we were talking about the last race, and he said, "Dad, I truly so want to do well, and I wanted to win so bad, and the emotions that took over me over the weekend, and we're here talking on the phone, and I could feel it inside of him, and I sat there, and he said something to me which was very important. He said, "Dad, almost every day I get up, I'm going to school, I'm on the honors program at FIU, and my daughter Sabrina was also on the honors program. So they have a strive to do the best that they can also, right?" But he said to me that every morning he was going to the gym, he was going on a simulator, he was thinking about the race coming up, and it was something that a lot of parents need to understand, that motorsports is actually a good thing. Because guess what? He's not at a bar, he's not drinking the liquor, he's not smoking the weed, because his strive to do his best in the sport that he's in. And that is one of the reasons why I say get your child into some sort of sport.
Okay.
Because it takes their mind away from the foolishness that is out there in the world, in the real world that there is today.
That's true. I've seen it firsthand. The truth is, a lot of kids who are participating in motorsport right now unruly to the bone.
Yes.
When them take it out on the track.
Right.
Whether it is a rally track, tarmac, drift track, a drag track, whatever, go-kart track, that's where they take it out.
Yes.
And even though you still see essence of that unruliness, it's not brought out into the public.
Right.
It's contained, it's managed, and it's dealt with.
True. And as I said, they're not the ones to, you won't see them now walking off and going and smoking a big spliff or downing a bottle of rum, because their goal is something else. And it is part of the whole motorsports family that we do have together.
That's true.
And I think that it has done very, very well for us in Jamaica. And look at the brand that we have abroad. The likes of Tommy and Senna in Germany, the likes of Fraser McConnell in America, Sarah Mazier going away. All of these things have done very, very, very well for Jamaica on a motorsports related world.
A young driver as well that made his name in karting.
Yes. And CJ and David Brown is up there right now. So they're all doing well.
We don't just excel in a regular entertainment.
No.
Well, so we are very well.
It's not just reggae music.
We are a very, very well-rounded community for the little island that we are.
Yeah.
That kind of brings us to the intersection of where we're going to kind of branch off away from racing, and we're going to talk a bit more about the business side of things, because I do remember very clearly a conversation we had when we were coming from Kingston, and you kind of gave me a bit of insight on what your development was like in business in order to fund your racing career. So we're going to talk about that. So the question that I would ask on that, I'd ask one question, and that's pretty much going to allow you to just talk about it.
Yeah.
And that is, describe how your need to race has developed you as a businessman.
So interesting question, and why I say that it has two sides. When I started this business, some 30 years ago. And another fellow that used to sit on the plane with me, and I used to work at FedEx, he used to work at DHL, and he formed a company called Mealpack. Now, if you're Jamaican and you ship on anything, quite a lot of people know what Mealpack is.
Yeah.
And I started my business, and ours was a little different. He started with small envelopes and books and so on, where I was more into the big stuff, the satellite dishes and the TVs and things. But his goal was to go out and make money and expand his business to the max. My goal was to make enough money to race. So I was more focused on, okay, so I could make this, selling that, and going back to America to buy more stuff to come back. And this would be able to buy my tires and my gas and so on for my next race.
Okay.
So I was not focused more on the business side of it as I could have. And who knows, I might have had many of these all over the island. But to me, the impact of motor racing and what I wanted to do was just more important. And to be honest with you, it probably still is, because even Tommy's like, oh, Dad, we can do this and we can do that and we can do this. And I'm like, hi, Tom, when you come out of college, you do it. Because I'm quite happy with how I have set up my life and how I am dealing with it. And I'm comfortable. So as long as I can race and, I don't have to worry too much on the finance part of it, I'm cool. I don't have to be a multi-millionaire, so, and I'm happy with where I am. So, if I can drive my nice car and live in a nice, comfortable house and have my office, I'm cool, right? So, that is where that business side took a spin. But I'll also tell you that motorsports helped me a lot to get the business that I was able to get. And I'll tell you why. If I came and I wrote a letter to a company and I says, I want to be your customer's broker, or I want to be your freight forwarder, and I handed that letter to you, or I sent an email and they looked and they said, Doug Gore, wait, I've heard that name before. Doug Gore. Oh yes, that's a guy that races. And so immediately he will continue reading that email or that letter, where simply because of the name I made for myself. Where I think if a John Brown did it, it might have been just thrown out into trash.
I understand.
So I think that motorsports helped me a lot where business was concerned. A lot. When you think back, it helped me tremendously, to be honest with you.
Okay. Business. So I know the mobile freight services that's here is a household name, and it's been a household name for a while. But prior to this business, where did it start?
So when I was 16 years old, my parents moved back to America, thinking, of course, greener grasses and whatever. And they came and said to me, all right, come, you have to go to college. And went up and signed up for college, and I wanted to be an architect. That was my whole dream. I loved technical drawing at school and thought that I could draw on the buildings and all this. So that was my whole goal when I went to America. Arrived there just within one term left of school. So I'm sitting there at home and I'm not really doing much. And then I got a call to say that I could now help this guy in a lawn service business, literally cutting grass and landscaping and that sort of thing. Started with him, and one day the gentleman that owned the company came to my father's house and he says, boy, I need to have a sit down talk with your son. And I says, why? He says, well, I employ all these Haitians and these Cubans and so on, and your son is making them look bad. And he says, what do you mean look bad? He says, yeah, they're sitting down there and they're on their 2-hour lunch break, and your son has gone out and he's weed eating and cutting the whole place, and they're done and he's ready to move on. And they're getting pissed off because
they didn't work when you're sitting down having lunch.
Right, exactly. So after that, my father came to me and says, why don't you open your own little lawn service business? And I said, Dad, I'm 16. He says, well, we live in Florida. We have 1 million yards just even around us. You make some flyers, you go and hand them out. and you see what happens. And we go and buy an old van, and we buy some lawn service equipment, and we go out and do this. So anyway, we started, and in no time, I actually had 4 employees at the age of 16. One of them we all know in the racing world, which was Mark Maloney from Barbados. He's the one that came with the RX3 back to Jamaica. He actually worked for me as a youngster. So, yeah, and he tells everybody all the time, he says, yeah, you know that, don't give him a first job. So at that age, I learned to be an entrepreneur, and college time came up. And just prior to that, I got a call from my mother that worked at FedEx, and they had what they call an onboard courier. What that person did was they came in, all the packages would come into FedEx. I would set up a manifest, and that manifest now would tell you what is going down, and if it's coming from Mary Jane to you, and I would put it on the manifest. I would jump on a plane, because back then FedEx didn't have their own planes. So I was flying on Eastern Airlines, American Airlines, Continental Airlines. And I was now going to a Caribbean island every single day. And when I got to that Caribbean island, I would let off the stuff from FedEx and I would clear customs. They now would give me all the packages that are going back to America. So, and I was doing this. I was at the airport every single day of life. And I did this for 7 years. So that's to tell you that I didn't go to college because I kind of got caught up in the whole world of making money.
Being island hopping sounds like a fun.
It actually was, yeah. I mean, I went as far as Bermuda. I mean, I was in New York every single week of life, and so I'm traveling all over the place, and then one of the things that it afforded me was that because I was flying for FedEx on these regular airlines, you got airlines points. So I could fly anywhere in the world that I want to for free. And I could even ask my family, my friends, and my girlfriend them and say, hey, let's go to England if I wanted to, So that sort of life was like, at that time was like sweet. And then you're making decent money. So again, it's a means to an end, right? And then after that, now people now started to come to me from Jamaica, and they're like, hey, Doug, you're always here. You're here twice a week. You're either going Kingston or Montego Bay. Could you stop and go and buy a TV for me, or a VCR, or a satellite dish, or something? So after a while, now I'd get little contacts and say, hey, you can give me a little discount off of a satellite dish. And yeah, man, we can give you a discount, and if you buy more from us. So all of a sudden, I became like the satellite dealer on the side. And then one day, 2 Jamaicans that worked at FedEx, one of them came to me and said, Doug, do you know that this is a conflict of interest? And I said, what do you mean? He says, you can't be working for FedEx and then shipping stuff to Jamaica because we're in the shipping business. It's a conflict. At that point, I was like, uh-oh, this is not good. So they said, listen, we're going to put a letter on your file, and you have to decide what you're going to do. Okay. So at this point now, I'm saying, boy, but I'm making a really nice change on the weekends doing this. What do I do? Anyway, at that point, I said, all right, let me employ somebody to do it for me, and therefore get my name out of it.
Your business, but not your name.
Right. So about a year after, because I'm still doing this and I'm doing all right with it now. And a year after, one of the employees, one of the managers came to me and said, Doug, I told you that I asked you to you stop this business that you're doing. And I said, no, sir, I'm not doing anything like that. He says, Doug, you're doing it. I said, I am not. I'm telling you I'm not. He says, are you lying to me, Doug? At this point, now I'm holding on my head and I'm like, shh. So I said, why? I mean, I don't understand. He says, well, Mark, the person that's working for you, I asked him because he brought in some stuff for me. And he says, who do I write the check to? And he says, oh, write it to Doug Gore. And he says, Doug Gore? But Doug Gore is not in this business anymore.
But how is it that you're not bringing stuff anymore at FedEx?
Exactly.
With somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah. So after that, now I had to decide. I had to make a decision. Do I continue this business as you see today, mobile freight services, or do I continue with FedEx? Sat down with my parents and I said, what do you think? funny enough, my mother that worked at FedEx said, no, I think you should try this. I think you should try this. It could be something that would be very lucrative for you. I think you should give it a whirl.
Okay.
My dad, on the other hand, he was also always an entrepreneur, but he knew that this could actually get to the point where you could lose, right? You could lose everything.
Yes.
And he said, boy, with FedEx, you're still making good money. You're only going to go up the ladder. And maybe one day at this point now you retire. And I say, well, I still want to race car. So how am I going to afford racing cars on a FedEx salary? That's not going to be possible. So at that point now I decided, and that's how Bobby Afraid came to be. I stuck it out and decided, you know what, I'm going to make this work. And
Okay.
it's here all these years later.
No regrets, right?
Absolutely none.
What's been one of the most challenging aspects of
I
running
think
a business?
I think at the start it was, you got all these orders and you were filling these orders, but it was a collection of money. And that's everybody's business, right? From the biggest of companies, they have this problem. And of course it's a collection. So it come to know the point of me now being very, very selective in who I was buying for.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to know, am I going to take on a John Brown and hope that he pays me because he wants me to buy literally almost a whole car of parts,
Mm-hmm.
and then you come down here now, you have to run him down off of the money. So many, many times you lost and, you're saying, oh my gosh, this is just horrible because you're wondering, how am I going to make it back?
Mm-hmm.
Because you lost so much money off of one or two people.
I understand.
So I got very smart with it, and everything that I buy now, if you ask me to buy this, and I'm saying, yeah, give me 50%. If it costs $100, give me 50.
Mm.
And that would now bind that person into making sure that he was ready now to
You
go.
both have a vested
Yeah,
interest.
that's right.
I understand.
Yeah. So even if he didn't come back for the part, at least I had half, right? And I could try and sell it now for the other half.
I understand. I understand. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Moving away from business, because that's a lot of people may not know about that aspect of it. People only see you for your achievements.
Absolutely.
People don't see you for your struggles. And a person will never ask you, yo, how rough was it in moving up in everything that you're doing? People will just come to you and be like, yo, you got dog, you have everything, da 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 da. When it was really and truly a struggling or
And I'll even go one step in telling you that when I first started the business, I had a little four-door Toyota Style, a 1984 four-door Style. And I used to pack up that car with goods and drive all over the island to sell it. And after a while, I made enough money where I could buy a van, like what you see outside, and a panel van. And I used to drive around in the panel van with a receipt book. And inside the panel van was my office. And I would walk inside and I would give you the calculator and the pens and so on that you had ordered. I would write up the invoice, same place, tear it out, hand it to you. You would pay me, jump back in the van, and gone back to the next delivery or gone back to America to buy more stuff.
Right.
So I did that for many, many years. And of course, everybody looks at this now and says, oh, look what Doug have, man. Oh my God. Boy, gold spoon in his mouth and Riri and boy, the Gore name. Absolutely not. I started this business using my mother's credit card. And when I believe me when I tell you, the best thing that she did was she gave me her American Express credit card. And especially back then, I mean, American Express has changed it now. But American Express, you had to pay the credit card off every month. It was like, when I said debit card, it was a credit card, but a debit card all in the same.
Okay, so then don't interest accumulate.
No. So if you spend $10,000, you had to give them back 10,000 to be able to get the credit for another 10,000. And that taught me a lot. Even to this day, I do not own a debit card. I don't want a debit card. And I use credit cards for everything that I purchase. because it's instilled in me that whatever I buy, I pay it off at the end of the month. So I got all the points, I got all the credits, I got all the cash backs, I got everything. And therefore now I don't have the problem of, and everybody listening to this, I'm sure has heard somebody or probably has had this, where you come in and, boy, oh boy, so them take out $1 million out of my account or $100,000 out of my account. And go down there and I'll put in the debit card and all of a sudden, all the money gone. With a credit card, you never have that problem because it's not your money.
I get you. I think I see you made a post recently about a wine purchase.
Yes.
And they added an extra zero.
That's
what
right.
was there,
That's right.
because it was a credit card.
Yeah.
It wasn't your money pulled, and you didn't have to wait 2-3 weeks again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. And you called up the credit card company and said, "Boy, I think this is wrong." Yeah, I just paid $1.2 million for a bottle of wine.
All right.
Where can you imagine if that was a debit card? Now you've been in serious trouble.
Well, a lot of people that would have declined in that sense. All right. Family.
Yes.
Your immediate family, because people look up to you not just because you're a racer, but because you also have a very, very strong family person. You're a family man.
Yes.
Your wife, your kids, they all look up to you, respect you. And it's a healthy family as well. And that's something that's lacking right now, not just in Jamaica, but worldwide. What has it been like as a family man? What are some of the core values that you instilled into starting a new family? What have you maintained throughout the family life? And what can you say it's like to know?
Last night I had some friends over playing dominoes, and we all sat down around the table and we were all eating, and we talked about this very same thing. And one of the guys that was sitting there said his father had 12 kids. And I'm like, wow. And the conversation started in some of the people saying, well, I was an only child, but I never ever saw my dad. And, again, you had another person, well, my father had 12 kids, lived abroad. He would come down and he would rent this big van and he would travel to every parish. And we laughed at him and said, yeah, the reason why he was traveling to every parish, he would pick up every picnic that he had in a different parish in Jamaica. So he says, oh, but my dad was okay. And Shan said to him, but was he around for all your birthdays and that sort of thing? And, it was after that now everybody kind of paused and said, that's, it's a very important thing that we just brought up, because even me growing up, my mom was very, very hands-on, especially with us kids. My mom wrote me a letter, and I have goosebumps just thinking about it, but my mom wrote me a letter just before she passed, and she could barely write at that point, but she said to me that, I am your biggest fan. And mommy would come to all the races, whether it be in the mud, in the rain, in the sleet and snow, although we don't have it here, but she would always be there at every event, regardless. And she brought along everybody with her. And, my father would come to the races, of course, that he loved. But it was one of those things that brought me back to making sure that my kids were always around and part of me. Now, growing up with my father was so big into sports or, playing golf and so on. I also realized that if I wasn't part of his world, especially back in those days, things have changed a lot now. But in those days, if you wanted to be around your dad, you kind of did what he wanted to do. So I took up the likes of playing golf, where, so I wasn't great at it, but I was good at it. But so I continued with it because I was around him, right? And then going to racing now, he did the same now. I started to race and he would come along, and as I said, my parents. So I wanted to make sure that my kids knew that I was always around, regardless. And, the phone calls or the WhatsApps that we have there today. Hey, just touching base. Remember, I love you. I'm not here beside you, but remember dad is here, that sort of thing.
I did that with my dad from time to time.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where even just sending a little heart emoji does wonders,
It's saying that I have you in the back of my mind.
That's right, absolutely.
I'm thinking about you.
Yeah, and I have a little one now. I call her Pumpkin, but Mila. And when I walk home and she's da 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 da, and she's running. She's only 2 now, and she's running and jumping in my arms, and it's always a great feeling. You get that little hug. So you have so many steps of me seeing that with Sabrina, and she's now 25, I think, and Tommy now is 19, and so it's just the different levels of what I have with my children now and how the relationships are. It's great. It's a good feeling.
Okay, they say that regardless of so many achievements in life, having a child is the greatest.
Yes.
Regardless of how many trophies and how many events, how many businesses, having a child that loves you, he loves them, I love them, and it's shown.
Yes.
It is the greatest feeling.
Yeah, man, it is. Yes.
So
and having a good person to live it out with.
Companion.
Yes, man,
Let's
absolutely.
believe we try to tough it out for some time as man.
Yeah.
And having the boys around and friends around, it's necessary and it's good, but it's not like having somebody that you can go to when you're in a rough state and you're not even have to tell them.
True.
And they can just pick it up and just help you release it.
Yes.
They don't have to take it from you, but just help you release it.
That's right. And I mean, if you've ever been to a race and been around my family when I'm out there on the track, and you hear my eldest daughter Sabrina and you hear my wife Shan, I mean, you think that they're going to scream your ears off, right?
The biggest fans.
The biggest fans, So it's also good that you get the videos after and you're smiling because they're going.
They're the ones that are most terrified for you.
Yeah,
but them cheer you on.
That's right. That's right.
We've covered family. We've covered business. Let's not dive into racing. Give us what it was like in your first official race. The first race you did, where you sat in a car, there were the roll cages, the exhaust was firing out to the back, ringing out your ears. The race gas was circulating through the car.
That's right.
Roll cage, helmet, suit.
That's right.
Give us what that feeling was like for you.
Yeah, I still remember it today. Funny enough, it was an Iron Shore event, and I just got in the car from a friend of mine, drive it around on the road and have fun. But this was now the first official time that you're on a start line, and the green flag is going to pull, and you're moving off. And back in those days, the only thing that you needed was a helmet. There's nothing else.
That's when racing was good.
Oh my God! You could race in shorts and a t-shirt, right? Absolutely insane when you think about it now. And I still remember finishing the day, and I had Peter Moody Sr. walk up to me and he says, "So who's managing your car, and where are you going from this? I mean, what's your thing?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "What's next?" And I says, "Why? How come?" And he says, "Well, you're very fast, and boy, I mean, I was doing some time splits, and you look like you have a career ahead of you." And at that point, I went, "Wow! If Peter Moody Sr. could say this about me, and it's my first event, this is interesting."
It's a good start.
Yeah,
it's a good start.
And then I had the likes of Chris Issa that at the time had motor sales, and he was sponsoring all these guys with Mitsubishi and sponsoring David Somerville and all of these big names. And I remember eventually buying a Mitsubishi again through a friend of mine. And I went to the first event that I was at. It was a rally. And I jumped out of the car and we walked over, and I was there talking, and somebody walked up and said, "Boy, Doug, that's a hell of a time you just did a while ago, man." I remember Chris is turning over and looking at me. And then, of course, he started to say, "Who is this kid?" And then he started to take, and I was, well, remember, I started very late at racing. I only started when I was 26 years old.
Oh.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know that.
Mm.
Yeah. So a lot of these trophies here you see are not that much of a, not like I was racing since I was a teenager.
Okay.
But after a while, talking to Chris and saying, "Boy, I would love to race under your team."
Mhm.
And I remember him giving my first bus. I went to the event in Kingston, and he had an Evolution 1 that one of his fellows drove for him, a guy named Peter Taylor. And he looked at me and he says, "Where's your car?" And I says, "Well, I just sold it." And he says, "Oh, so you don't have a car today?" And I said, "No." He looked at me, he says, "You brought your helmet?" I says, "Never leave home without it." He says, "How would you like to co-drive with this other fella here and both of you drive the car today?" I said, "Sure, absolutely." Well, I came second overall that day.
Behind who?
And I think it was Jeffrey Panton won the event, and I was second. And he looked at me, he says, "How would you like to take the car home?" I went, "But it's for Peter Taylor's own." He says, "No, I want to give it to you."
Mm-hmm.
And I went, "All right." And I took it home, cleaned it up, painted it, put on some stripes on it, of course, put on big motor sails, brought it back, and I walked out. Chris is walking out, and I still remember him looking at the car today and went, "All right, this is what I want. This is it. This is why I gave you this car." And it just it was all uphill from there. So, and I've gotten some really good breaks in life as far as sponsorship is concerned, and traveled all over the world because of it.
Before we dive into that fully, what or which race is the most memorable race?
Oh wow!
I don't think it was the first one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I wouldn't say it was a race, but an event to me.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, two drivers from the Caribbean were invited from all over the Caribbean to descend on Barbados to run what they call the Race of Champions. Now, the Race of Champions is a worldwide thing.
Mm-hmm.
They ask everybody from NASCAR to F1 to the rally greats of the world. I mean, some big names, huge names. And they all descended on Barbados to run as what they call Race of Champions.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeffrey Panton and I got invited. And we flew into Barbados and we walked into the drivers' meeting. And I sat there and watched David Coulthard, Ocon, what's the French guy that drives F1 that got caught on fire? Grosjean.
Mm.
Yeah, so all of these names and NASCAR names. The guy that won Indianapolis 500, he was there. Reyes. I mean, you had the likes of rally guys that were there, were like huge names. I mean, you're sitting around in this meeting and you're looking at all these guys that you were just fascinated with, and you were there with them. And I have a trophy outside. I'll show it to you. I was runner-up, and to me that was like a huge thing that I was able to go and be the runner-up for the Caribbean amongst all these greats, right? I remember losing my final race to F1 driver, Ocon, and it was just a hair of a bumper coming through the finish line. So it was that, after leaving and jumping back on the plane, and I said to myself, wow, I kind of proved myself that I kind of belong, and I'm just not, okay, you're good in Jamaica, had a great name, but I think I was able to showcase that I was able to go up all of these stars and be just as like them. As a matter of fact, Shannon and I were walking up the steps into a waiting area, and I remember the guy that won Indianapolis and the guy that won NASCAR, the two drivers, and they talk about famous at that time. And Reyes was asking, I think his name is Roddy Gordon, and Robbie Gordon. And he looked over Robbie and says, my God. And I'm walking up the steps and man, that Jamaican guy, he's fast. And Robbie says, yeah. Says, you surprised me too. And I looked over at Chad, I went, wow. And we sat on the couch, and I'm sitting on the couch, and Robbie Gordon looks over at me. He says, hey, it's a Jamaican. So I says, yeah. He says, man, you're pretty fast. So I say, oh, thank you. So he says, boy, how do you drive that KTM car? Oh, foolish me. And again, very foolish me. I went and opened my big mouth and told him how to drive the car.
Mm.
And I said to him that, well, I said, you're used to a race car and I'm used to a road car. And he says, what do you mean? And he says, well, the KTM car has a regular Honda gearbox with synchromesh.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, you guys are now trying to race change that gearbox and it's not going in. So sometimes I hear you're gritting gears or you're missing the gears and so on. We have to be a little gentle with it, you know. It's a regular car. Exactly. So he sat there and went, oh, thank you. Anyway, about half an hour later, we walked downstairs and we're getting into the KTM car. And I sit down, I'm racing against Robbie. And he looks over, he goes, and he gives me the thumbs up. I was like, don't why over the big mouth.
I get you. I get you. All right.
That was a great event. Yeah.
Okay.
Just an event on its own.
It's always amazing when somebody else points out your achievements.
Yes.
Because when you're living it and you're in the moment, you don't see it for yourself.
This is true.
But when somebody else points it out to you and say, "Oh, I've seen you, and you've done good," and it's amazing, you'll be like,
yeah, stop. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, being able to go to places like Japan and Mexico and America. I mean, I got to race Daytona and Texas Motor Speedway and Sebring. And man, I've rallied on some of the most famous rally tracks. Yeah, I mean, I've rallied where we're rallying right now in Mexico in Leon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been on those roads and actually won. You know, so and you go to Japan and you're entering their biggest event ever.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually won a stage against the likes of Possum Born and Toshi Arai. I mean, these are all famous names, you know, that were racing at the time. So you were there being part of that and saying, boy, and you were winning. So it was great. Yeah, you weren't just like down at the bottom and just, again, also ran. Which again, it comes back to that same question that you asked. When do I want to stop racing, or why am I continuing racing? And again, this comes back to the same thing. The day that I think that I'm going to be an also ran, I will stop. I will call it a day. Yeah.
Okay. But when I reach it.
Aye.
All right. Can you recall worst racing part?
Yeah. Been a few actually. When I say worse, I think the crash with David Sullivan and I at Jam West was a rough one for both of us. I mean, David, you know, he stopped racing a little while after that. So, you know, it's, that also is always in the back of my mind. You know, and a lot, he talks about the situation of that race causing him not to continue racing. Yeah. So, you know, I feel bad about that because I would have loved to have seen David continue, to be honest with you. But then, you know, you had that situation where you got in the crash, you got put into an ambulance, you're rushing out to the hospital because I couldn't feel my legs. And you're saying, oh my God, am I paralyzed? You know, is this it? And slowly, as we're going along the bumpy road in Sav, and I noticed, oh, okay, I can feel my toes now. But I remember Larry Henriquez running up to me and he looked in the car and he says, are you okay? And I said, I don't know what's happening, but I can't feel my legs. And that to me put a chill over me. I'm sitting in the car going, no, it can't end like this, you know. I'm saying it just cannot. And again, they're lifting me out of the car, they're putting me in there. I'm hearing my family crying outside, and then everybody's bawling and everybody's screaming. Yet after going to the hospital, and the hospital stopped what they were doing and to make sure that I was going to be okay, and they were pushing me out in a wheelchair, and I saw, I got maybe 100 people standing outside the hospital hours later, just waiting, including David Somerville. And we got back in the car, and I'm driving off, and everybody's like cheering that I was able to come out to the hospital.
You're okay.
So yeah, that was the bittersweet moments right there.
That's true. That's true. There's always something wrong in whatever you do in life.
Mhm.
It's not limited to just racing.
No,
It's could be the safest job you can think of.
absolutely.
There's always something rough in there.
That's why you must always live your life to your fullest, because
Yeah.
you never know. You never ever know. I could walk out here today and not be here tomorrow. So therefore, I always live my best life as best as I can.
Enjoy every day.
Yes, man, 100%. And tell everybody. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we touched through some cool stuff. One of the things I wanted to discuss was, what do you think now about the current state of motorsports on a whole in Jamaica? Because you've participated in many different areas. I don't think I've ever seen you participate in drifting or drag. Well, apart from against Nick.
Right.
But what's your current take on what's happening now in motorsports?
Yeah, so it has changed quite a bit. As we can see, there's an event coming up on Sunday, this Sunday, the Q8 Drift out at Jam West. And I'm glad for them, and where is Drift going? We're still not sure, because they do get a little crowd wherever they go all over the island, but it's not big. It's not circuit racing big. Rallying, as you know, it died literally, and it's now making its way back, thank goodness. And quite a bit of people are now dreaming up different things. They're putting on these sprints. If they ever get back tarmac rallying again, which would be massive. So you're bringing it back to the public. So there's certain things that are happening in motorsports that hopefully it will come back up again. There's a new board on for circuit racing. So, you're hoping that these new guys that are there now will bring back circuit racing back to where it was. But then we also have to say that motor racing has taken on a different spin. Just like Tommy and Senna over in Germany, just like Fraser over in America. As again, there are other things that are going on that are bringing the limelight to Jamaica for motorsports. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we still have to make the core of what we're doing here in Jamaica survive and continue. Mm-hmm. So I think that we're on the upward projection, and I hope that it will do well.
And everything in life has a up and down. It's
absolutely.
It's never constant.
Yeah. I'll tell you our biggest ups and downs. Sorry to cut you.
That's cool.
David Somerville is on the top of the world. The Audi comes. The hoopla over the Audi. First race of the Audi. I spin out. David wins. Everybody's like, oh my God, did Doug make the right choice? I end up winning the last race of the day, that day. But yet everybody always remembers the first race with the spin. Still came second in it, but forget that. The Audi now becomes on top of the world, and I'm winning all the races, and the crowd is there, All of a sudden, the crowd now starts to root for the underdog, and they're begging for David to win. And I remember David finally beating me, and they hoisted him out of the car and paraded him around with him up on everybody's shoulders.
Must have been something.
And so you have now gone here. And then you had the likes of Kyle coming with a Radical now and being on top of the world. And after a while now, Senna comes with his Radical, upsets him, he comes down, he leaves, sells his car, gone to rallying. So all of these things of, you've seen all of this going on, and just remember that you're never on top of the world for forever.
Everybody has their 15 minutes,
yeah,
or half an hour of fame.
Yes.
But the button does get passed on to somebody coming new, um, which is you find that people don't always embrace a newcomer sometimes, and then after they've proven themselves, they start to get the love that
Yes.
should be expressed towards everybody in the sport.
So,
Um,
and I mean, I've been doing this. I would have to say that I am and I can't think of another person that has not raced every single year since 1996. Every single year. And there has not been a year that I have not gone into a race car and raced something. So I think that is I think that's I think that, knock on wood, I think that's a lovely achievement that I can pride myself on. That.
It's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
Something to be proud of. And it's not to say that you're doing it every year to say I prove that you're the best. It's just doing it because it's something that you fell in love with.
That's right.
At an early age, you created an entire business to support this hobby of yours, and you will do it, as you say,
until such time.
Until such time.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that'll be anytime soon.
I like your faith in me.
Let's talk about the evolution of the cars that you've gone through in racing, where it started to pretty much where it is now.
Yes. So technology has taken over a lot, and starting from my little two-door Opel Corsa, which was an English car, and a little 1300 engine in there, and the thing used to scream like a bat out of hell. And then you got involved in the whole Mitsubishi four-wheel drive scenario of the Colt, and then all the evolutions. And I've owned, I think we counted them the other day. I've owned 11 evolutions over my time. So after the whole evolution thing, and I made the speech of I went on to bigger and better things, and then I got an Audi along with ATL, and that was where the whole marketing aspect of the Unbeatable brand came out, and it was because of us in the race car, and it still lives till today. ATL still uses it today. Yeah, and it was all formed around us and the race car, so that was pretty cool. And then
he created a slogan for one of the biggest.
Yeah. And then I still remember in Europe after the crash with David, and I'm in Europe shopping for a car. Adam Stewart sees my Instagram posts, and he calls me one night, and he says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm searching for another DTM car." "Oh, another Audi?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Well, can you find a Kia?" So I said, "Kia?" So I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, not everybody knows, but we're going to become the Kia dealership in Jamaica." I said, "Oh." So I said, "Well, see what you can find." At this point now, again, we're looking at DTM cars, and I'm looking at rallycross cars that could become a circuit car. And we go down to these people and we said, "Can we make this Audi, two-door Audi, look like a Kia?" I said, "We can make it look like anything you want." We change the headlights, we change the backlights, we put on some graphics, and it will look like a Kia. So we shipped down this car that was really an Audi, but it looked like a Kia. And of course, everybody jokingly now calls it the Kia Audi.
That's a good name.
But I mean, it did what it was supposed to do, and bring the brand awareness to the audience.
Because I worked at Kia personally, and knowing where
I think it's the number one selling brand in Jamaica
right now.
Yeah,
number one. Has it gotten there?
I know it surpassed Toyota the other day. It did.
Yeah, then it's
maybe a year ago. I don't know if it's continued, but
it would have been a couple months ago.
It would have. Okay.
Because prior to me working there,
it was close. Yeah.
The day we overtook Honda.
Yeah, it was huge.
It's huge.
Yeah. It must have been a hell of a celebration.
I don't know. I've only heard from the story.
Yeah.
So I used to work at Honda,
Right.
and the opportunity came to work at Kia, just as the year was coming to an end,
Right.
and I moved over to Kia, and that month I sold 2 cars.
Right.
Kia outsold Honda that year of 2 cars.
Oh, you like that?
So my coworkers at Honda, I think they're still
I mean, against you.
for that. So yeah, but the brand separated aside from the Kia idea was it shook up Jamaica quite well,
Mm.
and sometimes it's necessary.
Yes.
It's necessary for a change, which the beast brought.
Yes,
to
yes. And I'll tell you something is that I was privy to be part of the meetings with the Kia people
Mhm.
and Adam. And when I heard them talking, and they were saying to him that, well, they wanted to offer a 5-year warranty.
Mhm.
And I looked at them and I went, are you a madman? He says, have you seen the roads in Jamaica? And they said, yes, we have seen the roads in Jamaica. And I said, and you're going to offer this? He says, yes, 100%. And I looked at Adam at that time and I says, if you could ever tell a Jamaican that for 5 years they could hand their keys to their car and they know that for 5 years the car is going to be on the complete warranty, I think you have a winner. And there it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's huge.
It is. It is.
So much so that some other brands took on that policy.
They did.
I think it's changed now. What, it's 3 now, maybe? I'm
Or
not sure if it's still 5 or still 5. Right?
prior to come to me being there, prior to me leaving.
Yeah.
Or still 5.
Yeah, that's massive.
Um,
And I tell people all the time, they come and they say, oh, Doug, what do you think about what kind of car? And I would say to them, okay, so Kia might not be the Honda, but still remember, 5 years is 5 years. And they have come out with some technological stuff that's in their car that's just like, wow.
have you driven this Orrington?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, again, it's like, wow. Yeah. Impressive.
On that note, besides some other sponsors that you've had being close friends of yours, what has it been like getting sponsors, and what advice would you give to people who are looking to get sponsorship?
Become a brand.
Mm,
Yeah, become a brand.
become marketable.
Yeah. If you're not marketable, it goes all out the wayside. If you can't go and sit down with them and say, and they say to you, what can you do for me? And then you come back and says, and you do the same. So, okay, it's not them just writing a check for money. After they write a check, they have to now see what you're going to do for them.
Mhm.
Not necessarily say you're going to win races but you also need to bring their brand awareness.
Mhm.
So, okay, Doug brought the Audi, and Audi became, I think it's the second best luxury brand in Jamaica.
True.
And this was before a Jamaican didn't even know what an Audi was. Yeah? Yeah, but no, again, they didn't even know what an Audi was. They didn't have a clue what was an Audi. And now everybody knows. And I'm happy to say that I think that I'm glad that I was part of that. And then also with the whole Kia, I think I was part of that. Then the evolutions of Mitsubishi. You know, I was a big part of making Mitsubishi, especially with the Evolutions. I mean, Evolution was like the car for a long time. Yeah.
It still is an iconic piece.
Absolutely. Yeah. I drive Tommy's car and park it at Fontana, and I come out and kids are right there beside the car and taking pictures and posing. And I mean, you're sitting there going, my God, this car is a 2005, you know.
Well, I wish they kept going with the Evolution name.
Yes.
And building on it, but they made some mistakes.
Yes,
Now they
yes.
don't know that way.
That is true.
Okay.
That's true.
So sponsorship is a pretty big thing for everybody. Like you said, become a brand.
Yeah.
Become
And also, become a, but also it's all the time where you call, you WhatsApp me, but yesterday, yeah, and you said, Doug, I wanted to do this, and I said, yeah, man, pick a time and place. I'm sure that you made many a phone call to people, and they went, well, yeah,
Some people afraid of camera.
yes.
Yeah. Some people.
And I have people that are standing beside me like, oh, Doug, I beg you, try and get my sponsors for the race car now. And I will say, all right. And you try and get it for them. And it has happened to me many, many times. And a Rory Daly or you would come up or somebody would come up and they want to do a little interview. And they're walking away. No.
Really thought function.
Yeah. And you're saying, well, how can I continue? How can I do this? So, yeah, it's tough. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I've made sure with Tommy from he was 5 years old. I would tell Tommy, he says, you go over there and you pull on the guy's shirt and he says, you want to interview me? Even if you came last.
You want a picture?
Yes.
Because it is true. Coming up doing photography, whenever I say, oh, I can get a conversation with you, no, sure, no problem. Both you, Tommy, Sarah, which is currently, I think, the most marketed racer.
That's right.
In Jamaica right now. She's a corporate racer.
That's right.
And I do genuinely admire for that. Very pleasant. Tommy is the same thing. Fraser is the same thing. I saw Fraser the other day, and I said to him, "Hey, would you be interested in sitting down for a convo?" And he said, "Yeah, man, no problem." And a lot of people who want the same kind of recognition that you would have or Tommy would have, I think what they do is they look at the recognition, but they don't look at the blueprint.
Yes.
And
100%.
It doesn't take much to ask.
No.
For help, guidance, assistance, share some of your tricks and trades. You'd be surprised how helpful the automotive community is.
I'll give you a story. Years ago, Sharon Williams was probably one of my biggest sponsors back in the Evolution day. And I sat down in their boardroom and they were talking about signing a contract. And this was all official, you push in the paper and they're going to sign and everything in front of everybody. And they said, boy, we would love to put some billboards up. And then the accountant now was sitting beside him. He says, boy, we're kind of running out of money as far as the automotive brand and so on is concerned. And I looked at him and I says, how much is the billboards going to cost? And he says, well, it would cost X. And I said to them, I pushed the paper back to them and I says, take $200,000 out of my contract and put it towards the billboards. And everybody in the room went dead silent. I said, what? And the present general manager at Sharon Williams looked at me and says, Doug, are you sure? And I says, 100%. They did it. I got $200,000 less. We signed the contract, but I had billboards all over Jamaica. Again, that built my brand awareness for myself.
It's a reinvestment in yourself.
That's right. And the slogan was Doug Gore, the fastest in a finish. And it's one of the slogans that Sharon Williams still has today.
Fastest in the finish.
Yes, so they paint the walls and it dried the fastest, right? Yes. So it was something that I did, and they were blown away by it. But I'm looking long term, right? After Tommy finished his race, he sends out an email as to how the weekend went to every single one of the sponsors, but also tagging every single thing that he was on. So we were on 5 TV stations in Europe. We were on Sportsmax. We were in the Gleaner. There was a write-up in the wherever. And he takes all of those and attaches those to his write-up as to what he did over the weekend. And that is something that is super, super important. Again, along with pictures that he would think that particular sponsor would use in their advertising. So it's a very smart move on our part, because we know that, come next year now again, and we say, hey, we're going back for it. And they will say, you know what, we saw what was going on And that was very important. Yeah.
Really. Because even when you're losing, if you are representing the brand properly, it doesn't. It's still a good look.
That's right. That's right.
Still a good look.
Yeah.
Sponsorship aside, what advice would you give to somebody who is looking to start a racing career? Right.
So that is the toughest part because I think every single week of life,
Somebody asks it.
somebody asks me that same question. But who is John Brown? You know what I mean? And that's the tough part, especially today. You know, you have the Doug Gores and the Senna Sawbells and the Taz of the world, or you have those. And so who are these other guys? I've never heard of them before. Oh, what do you race? I've never seen you. Although they're there, they're in that same race with me, but you don't even know, right? So that's the hard part because when you go to a sponsor, they don't know you. They've never seen you before. They've never seen you on TV. They've never seen you in a write-up in a paper. And that was one of the things that I always did. After a race meet, I would always be in front of the guy with the radio, or I would be in front of the guy with the TV. And how I got on the TV on when I got the nickname, was I actually went up to Winston Casanova and I said, "Did you see that I was racing on 3 wheels?" And he said, "Yes." And one of my wheels had dropped off of the car, but I finished the race with 3 wheels on. And I remember coming over the finish line and the car went, "Tunk." Because I was only on 3 wheels, right?
Yeah.
And I said, "Did your camera guy catch it?" And he said, "Yeah." And he asked the camera guy, and said, "Yeah, man, we catch the guy, man, we catch the guy." So I said, "That's me." So guys, I said to him, I says, "Well, will I be on sports news on Monday?" And the guy looked at me and says, "Who do you think this is? You think you're in Hollywood?" And he sure said I was watching the TV now on Monday, and Winston Casanova comes on, he says, "And straight out of Hollywood, Doug Gore on 3 wheels coming through the finish line." But it was me always trying to make sure that I was there somehow, some way, going to be in the papers. So I remember I have some clips around the back. I have boxes of every single time I was in the newspaper, and I'll cut it out, Of course, social media has changed that now, and you can have it now. Yeah. But I mean, I have boxes of these old brown newspaper clippings that I have. And as long as my name was there, I'd be highlighting it or drawing like a red mark around it, and I'd cut it out and keep it. And because you always wanted to be able to showcase that to a prospective sponsor.
Yeah.
And that's what the youngsters need to do. Get their name out there. They can be, "Oh, I'm going to build a car, so I want somebody to give me $100,000.
Put some paint and stickers on it.
Yeah, why? So what I did was I went around to Sherwin-Williams. That's how I got started. And I said to them, "Will you give me paint for my car?" And I says, what's a quart of paint going to do for you guys? Nothing. It's not really going to cost you. You're making drums of this stuff. Okay, so what's your most popular color? Red, blue, white? Yeah. I said, "Give me." And I'll spray the car and I'll put Sherwin-Williams on the car. And then after the year goes on, I says, "Boy, so what do you think?" We said, "Boy, it was great, because I saw you on TV and boy, Sherwin-Williams." I said, "You think you can buy me a set of tires?" "I think we can." So, I got paint, but then I got tires, and then I got this, and no, they paint my building for free.
All right, that's so good. That's so good.
So yeah, that's how it starts.
Actually, hoping that my channel as well reaching to the point where I can have some sponsors come.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So
am I.
we pretty much boiling down towards the end of stuff. Separate from looking for a sponsor, what advice would you give to somebody who is looking to come into racing as a racer? No, not necessarily looking for sponsorship, but just building their racing career.
Right.
Somebody just looking to start.
Mm.
What advice?
So a lot of guys, especially over COVID, And after COVID, we bought a lot of roll cage pipe. I mean, so much so that I brought in roll cage pipe like crazy. But I still don't see the cars. So a lot of these cars were in the process of being built and stopped. So I'm sure there's like a million garages around there with roll cages, but no engine, no gearbox, no nothing. So I'm still saying to myself, where did all these cars go? So, and people still calling me today for roll cage pipe. Amazing. Now, a lot of that had to do with drag racers having to have roll cages in the car if you came down to a certain time that you're doing, right? So I understand that part, but there are a lot of people out there. So what happened? Where are they? So motorsports can explode and can explode sooner than we think if they like what they see and want to be a part of it. So yeah, there was a point where, boy, I want to be the next Doug Gore, or I want to be the next whomever. So it is for them now to push to get there. And yeah, to me, I would think that it would be more that I would go to a person that has a race car that's not using it and saying, hey, can I buy the race car from you little over time? Now, a lot of people not going to want to do that. I agree, because you're racing it and you could write off the car and then there's nothing to go and barter with, right? So you do have that, but I think it's still better to go and look for that, because again, there's so many race cars in Jamaica that are sitting around.
That's true.
Doing nothing, just gathering dust.
That's true.
That all really and truly need a cleanup, a new set of spark plugs, and they can go racing for very cheap. So instead of buying these old cars, fixing them up, building them from scratch, yeah, that's part of the so-called fun. It was never fun for me. I hear everybody talk about it. Oh, but building a car, man, it's so much BS. That's a lot of heartache. And experimenting and money being spent. And that's one of the reasons why when Tommy bought the Civic, we bought Fraser McConnell's green True car. And that was the car that we took. And immediately that car was a winning car. We didn't have to guess. We brought it. Yeah, we made it a little better than what it was. But guess what? We used a proven car. And I was willing to pay because it was a proven car. You see what I'm saying? Why was I going to now buy a Civic now to make it into a proven car? So it was like the time where I wanted Daddy to come back and race. And Daddy decided to race at 72 years old. The oldest racer ever to come back and race at Dover. Right? So that's another thing.
That was when they had the Double versus Radicals.
Right, yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So all three of us were racing, all three generations. It was a wicked.
That's another iconic, iconic moment.
So Daddy's in 70s, you know. I'm in my and then Tommy was in teenage years. But yeah, that was one of those moments where you sat back and going, wow, we're hopefully making another stamp on our name in motorsports here in Jamaica. And then coming back to, as what you were saying, with to get into motor racing. And as I said, I get the call all the time, or the WhatsApp, or the DM on my Instagram, or, oh, I want to start racing. How old are you? And they'll tell me their age. And I'll say, start with go-karting. Oh, but go-karting, yeah. And I always tell them,
but there's only
the foundation.
There's only one place.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, right. But I mean, we used to drive in all the time. Junior Madden and us and all of us.
Would you say that?
You know, one of Tommy's best sponsors was the Jamaica, I think it was called Airways at the time, that flew back and forth from Montego to Kingston.
Yeah.
One of the biggest sponsors ever. I just went there and says, Tommy's 5 or 6 or 7. Can you have a seat on your plane to get him into Kingston? And then the likes of like the Moody's or whoever was at his team manager at the time, you know, CJ or whoever, and they would meet him and pick him up at the airport and then go testing. So it never really costed them any money, right? because they were flying in all of these passengers, and as
Every
long as
day.
us, yeah, as long as the seat was on the plane, it's not costing them any more to put Tommy in the plane. But we plastered it, and we had a big sign on the back of the tent, and Airways Jamaica, and they loved it. Yeah. So again, it's coming back to that same thing of asking Sherwin Williams for a little pint of plane. So is what do you need to achieve that goal of racing?
Mm.
Okay, so you had to buy Maxxis tires to run the go-kart.
Mhm.
So you went to Maxxis and said, okay, I know I'm going to buy 100 tires from you this year. Out of that 100, can you give me 20? I'm going to buy it in 100%, but I want you to sponsor me 20 out of the 100.
Mm. Would you say that racing on a whole is a rich man's sport?
Oh, why? Um, Growing up in racing, I was never rich. It was always making enough money to be able to race.
Mm.
And that is true to today.
Yeah, that question was really to debunk the stigma surrounding it.
Right.
Because a lot of people are very one track minded. You will invest in the things that you love.
Mm.
Any hobby has a potential to be expensive.
Absolutely.
If you're a smoker, and you should calculate the amount of cigarettes that you smoke for a month or a year, it may accumulate to entry level racing.
Listen to me. I have gone to a Pier 1 and I've seen guys buy Hennessy and champagne and spend more on a night at Pier 1 than I spend on a weekend at a restaurant. 100%, I've seen it myself. And I've seen their bills and go, OMG. So guess what? Everybody has their vice,
That's true.
and everybody has something that they want to go out and be a part of. And hey, if going to Pier 1 and spending them breed of money on drinks, well, hey, guess what?
That's
So
what
be
your
it.
fun lies.
Yeah, that's
So,
it.
okay. So it's not
Go,
that
go
it's,
to Taboo and let it rain.
so it's not that it's a rich man's sport. It's just where you choose to spend
Yeah.
your extra time
Yes.
and your extra money. It's what you choose to work towards.
That's right.
And if you have the drive for it, if you have the passion for it, that's where you will spend the bucks.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, even in track and field, okay, so you're using your body to be part of the sport, but to truly become a Usain Bolt or a Shelly Ann, do you realize what the coaches and the time and the effort and the money that is poured into being able to run a 9-second 100 meter?
Just once.
You have any idea? A lot.
Preparation is a lot.
A lot.
And if that same mentality
Yes.
is poured into anything,
Yes.
racing,
Yeah.
any hobby whatsoever.
You look at it. I play golf, and I know if you wanted to go and play at Trump in America, a round of golf, and it will cost you at $300 for a couple hours.
Mm.
So again, everything costs.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it's just where you choose to
That's right.
direct your time
That's right.
and your money.
Yeah.
All right, we're pretty much rolling down to the end of stuff. What I'd finish with is, what's one advice that you'd love to share with the general public based on all that you've accumulated, all the knowledge, all the experiences that you've accumulated throughout your life? What's one advice that you would like to pass on to the public?
So the first part here.
With all that you've experienced,
Yeah.
all the life, all the different parts of life that you've lived, what's one advice that you would like to pass on
Mm.
to the public?
Okay. Never ever give up on your dream.
Mm.
Very important. My dream of trying or wanting to be the best at racing was so deep inside of me that I would do literally almost whatever it took. And we'll come back to the same thing of, boy, Doug, do you think you're the best driver in Jamaica? No. But my will to win is so huge and so embedded in me that it took over any deficiency that I had in driving. But that has been me in life. If you tell me that I can't do it, why, problems there. I am going to try 100%. And that's been in business, that's been in pleasure, that's been in almost everything. So I would always say to everybody that never ever give up on your dream. Never.
Okay.
Important.
Cool.
Remember, you talked about it. Okay, I'm going to leave X, Y, and Z to do X, Y, and Z to fulfill a dream. Yeah.
I'm still on the path.
There you go.
Still on the path.
That's what I want to hear.
It's been a good one.
Yes.
Guys, that wraps up another amazing episode. I feel like there's a lot more that we could have covered.
We'd have a couple of hours. That's for another interview.
That's for another interview. We'll definitely roll.
So we'll see the views, and if the views are good,
we'll
then we can say, as a matter of fact, they can put it in the comment section.
Yeah.
If they want some more,
drop it down in the comment section. So for episode 2,
like and subscribe.
Yes. At the bucket seat with Mr. Gore here, we'll talk about any question that you guys might drop down.
That's right.
We'll make it an
even better.
Yeah. We'll get some.
We can write them down and we can do a thing.
Alright, guys. Thank you for watching. It was a great one. Peace.